filmed the proceedings. This is really awesome. So clap. Thank you, Jack, for clapping. And I don't want to embarrass you, but Betty Buckley's here with us today, and she's such a strong supporter of Lawrence Show. She was on our jury last year, and she's just a big supporter, so we just appreciate you being here. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce you guys to Preston Jones, who will then introduce T-Bone. Preston?
I'm the music critic, Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and I'm honored to bring out one of Fort Worth's own. Grammy-winning, Oscar-winning, critically acclaimed producer, has made albums recently with Steve Earle, Greg Allman, Elvis Costello, Secret Sisters, Ryan Bingham, the one and only T-Bone Burnett. Get all comfortable. All right, well, thank you for taking time to talk to us today about one of your favorite subjects, the difference between analog and digital. I know you have a lot of thoughts on that, so I thought I would start by asking you to kind of outline, in your opinion, what are sort of some of the fundamental differences where you think, analog is stronger than digital.
Well, I think, first of all, I want to say that we're 20 years down the road into this digital music experiment, and I think it's clear by now that as far as the experience goes, the sonic experience goes of listening to music, that analog is a far superior experience. There are great advantages to digital, and we should take full advantage of it. I'm not, I say these things, and sometimes people call me a Luddite or something. But really, I'm not a weaver who wants to go back to the loom. I want to go forward to a better sounding future. So the fundamental difference is that everything in the universe travels in waves. Light travels in waves, and sound travels in waves. And our vocal cords wave, and the diaphragm on the microphone waves, and the speakers wave, the guitar string waves. Everything's traveling in waves, and then as soon as you put it into digital, it's squares. It turns into squares. It turns into steps, and the more steps the more samples you have, the more steps you have, the more points you have. Those sharp corners. So I've been listening under laboratory conditions for 40 years, listening to music in big speakers. And I've never been able to listen to digital music in the studio because it's just it's fatiguing, and I've been fighting this battle for years, and it's finally we're finally I think we're reaching a tipping point where people are starting to realize, especially musicians, there's a groundswell of rebellion among the musicians of the world. Of they don't want their music on these bad formats anymore. We've gone from, LPs were a great format for listening to music, and I can. By the way, I can talk about this for 8 hours, so I'm going to try to condense it into.
Come back for parts 2 and 3.
Yeah, but So one of the things we're looking for as we go forward, there are two things we're trying to do. We're trying to improve the quality of digital music as it's distributed, and we're looking for new, more robust and greener analog storage for music, because I think that's really the most, the audience deserves if you're going to be selling something to the audience, you all are musicians. If you're going to record something and sell it to somebody, you want to give them something that they feel is of value. You want to give them something where they feel they're getting a great deal and a great experience, both. That's the sweet spot we have to find.
And to that end, you've kind of been helping get in that direction with the code, the mastering process you've developed?
Right, well, it became clear about 4 or 5 years ago that standards had collapsed to the point where there was no way to actually judge a piece of music anymore, the sound quality of a piece of music, because there's so many. In the 1950s, about 1950, there were some standards set for recorded music. Excuse me, the National Association of Broadcasters and the Record Industry Association of America published some standards. Before 1950, every manufacturer had a different set of standards. So the reason there are tone and volume controls on record players and not on an iPod, for instance, was because back in those days, the listener or the broadcaster was constantly having to adjust to try to figure out what the artist meant. You know, like certainly he didn't mean it to sound like this, so you'd be able to like adjust it till you could kind of guess what the artist intended. After publishing those standards, we were all, for about 50 years, we were all listening to the same thing. Really a good 40, 35 years. We all had, you know, a record, a turntable, and 2 speakers, and everybody was essentially speaking the same language. Then, you know, with the digital revolution, the first thing that happened is CDs were a tremendous sonic downgrade from vinyl or analog tape. That was the first problem, were CDs. Then, you know, the digital distribution started on the internet, and what you have is you have so many devices. You have so many different devices with so many different paths of electronics, that there was no way to standardize anything. Like you could you could finish something that would sound really good on a good system, and would sound really good maybe on an iPhone, but would sound terrible on an HP, laptop. And you know, a $2,000 laptop computer has about a 50-cent audio component in it. So you know, the audio part of the computing world has been left to the last moment to try to deal with, and now we're trying to deal with it. So, you know, we're trying to set new standards for digital distribution of music. I would say within 5 years, people won't carry any media with them at all. You know, here's where we're headed. This is definitely, absolutely where we're headed. We're going to have devices that will have very little memory. Maybe enough memory if you're going to the beach or you're on a plane or you're going on vacation, maybe enough for, you know, to get you through the day. But there'll be devices like this that will be cloud, you know, enabled devices that will have a whole different signal path and a whole different structure. And there'll be permissions devices. So I'll have this. I'll be able to open my machine. I'll be able to access whatever media, you know, devices are available. This will give them permission to see all my data that I've collected, and I'll be able to use that for as long as I'm here. Then when I leave, when I get, say, 100 yards from here, the permission will be ended. And that's the way it's going to work. We won't carry anything around with us, really. We'll have small devices, and we'll have access to everything. There'll be a small charge on our phone bills or something like that that will be divided among all the people who provide the data, the information, or the art, or the music, you know. But you know, and within 10 years. You know, because presence is becoming a very big part of the electronic universe. So, I mean, they already have it. You can see it on the news shows. You see telepresence. You see those big telepresence screens. Have you all seen it? Have you all seen that live?
Sort of like Skype, kind of.
Well, it's Skype, you know, to the extreme, to the
right.
But like, you know, you could be sitting at a dinner table, or you know, here's what happens most of the time with telepresence. You're sitting at a table, there's a screen at the other end of the table. other side of the table, and the people that you're telepresencing with have the same experience. They're at a table, and there's a screen on the other side of the table. But when you look at the screen, it's just as real as if y'all were sitting right there. You feel just as connected. And then the other part of that is holograms. So, and they have that on news. They're using both telepresence and holograms on these news shows now. So within 10 years, when I call you up, rather than FaceTime, I'll call you up and you'll be sitting there and we'll talk just like this. So that's the way communications is going in the future. Where music fits into all of this is going to be a whole other matter.
And that's kind of your role, in working with artists, is sort of bridging the gap, because you've always been a very active proponent of, analog recording techniques and working with, analog equipment.
We're an analog shop,
Yeah.
because digital hasn't come up to the quality of analog yet. We haven't felt like ready to switch over to digital because it just doesn't sound as good as when what we're continue to do with analog. It's the difference between film is to video as analog is to digital. So film has an infinite range of color. Video is a much narrower range of color. The lines aren't straight. The lines are, if the thing is about any digital file, if you blow it up, like if you blow a JPEG up to the size of this curtain, it comes apart and you see all the squares, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing happens with music. If you put a CD or God forbid, an MP3 on a big set of speakers, it sounds like that's what you hear, on a big. You don't hear it through earbuds, but you hear it on a
Audio pixels.
So anyway, going back to code for a bit, we started this initiative called Code Adaptive Mastering, so that the audience could get a copy, if they wanted a digital copy of a piece of music, they could get one that would respond properly to the device and the environment they were in, like a car or a dorm room or wherever they were. So, and that's an idea that's now coming around. Adaptive mastering is now becoming something that everybody's talking about in the music world, in the media world.
Yeah, because you have a lot more. I mean, not only do you have people with the MP3, which was obviously mastered for the tiny earbuds, but you have more and more home theaters, people that are able to listen on nicer systems, and so they can hear what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's so many devices. MP3, which is the medium of distribution right now, is a relic, is an artifact of the dial-up modem age, where we're still driving around in the internal combustion engine, and we're still listening to all of it. The thing is, the internet is already completely outdated. There's Internet 2 is about 100,000 times better than what we call the internet now, which I guess we could call Internet 1. We're right on the verge of G5, which is going to open everything up to telepresence and holographic communications, which is so much faster and so much robust than anything we're dealing with now. So, I mean, in the next 10 years, technology's been turning over about every 10 years. And we're just at a new turnover where we're moving from this time of infinite copying, where there are billions and billions of copies being made and sent around the world, which is very inefficient, wastes energy, wastes everybody's time, to an internet where there's one copy that everybody has access to, which makes way more sense, like the library, The library here has a copy of a book and everybody has access to it. So we're moving more into that kind of model, and I think it's going to be a more humane, less destructive, more creative system. I hate that word system.
Construct.
Yeah, construct. Okay, thank you.